You guys, today we're going to talk about money. Like, I know my audience loves to talk about money. We have a spiritual mindset coach who is an expert in business and money energetics, Kristen Kacinski, joining me on the podcast today. Yay, I'm so glad you decided to join us today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. So, you know me, I love talking about energy. I love talking about money. So when you brought up that you wanted to talk maybe possibly about money, I was like, yes. Um, so what got you into the energetics of money, first of all?
Yeah. Well, obviously starting my business. Well, maybe that's not obvious to people who don't know me, but yeah, I mean, starting my business got me interested in money mindset because Brandon, you and I have been in contact for a couple of years now. So you've kind of seen my journey as it's unfolded. But for anyone who's just meeting me, I originally started out as a very strategic business coach and I didn't do anything with mindset or energetics. And that worked for me up until a certain point. But what I started to realize was I kept hitting the same income ceiling, or I'd have like massive inconsistency with my money, even if I was using the same strategy, or even if I was like optimizing and making my strategy even better. And so that just over time became like a big red flag to me that there's something much bigger at play versus just like business strategy that I need to pay attention to make money in my business. So
Yeah. So you were checking all the boxes, doing all the things, all organized. You had it all in your mind, but then it wasn't working. And so that's when you started looking other directions, right?
yeah, and I will say like it worked up until a certain point. So I think there's something to be said about having like your strategic foundations in place. I think without that, it can be really challenging to start growing your income online. But beyond the foundations, my opinion now is that there's very little strategy you need to like keep adding or keep doing. You can start to rely a lot more on your energy to call in the money because that's really how it all works. So,
Yeah, I love that. Recently I've just been, taking a step back. Obviously, you know that.
mhm.
And something that I noticed was being in a lot of these training and like in masterminds, and when we would get like different trainings from different experts. And I found myself like going, oh, I got to go this way. Oh, I got to go that way. And so then taking time off, I'm like, well, that's just information being presented. It's so important for you to only take action on that from a place if it really feels in alignment versus thinking, oh, I have to implement this into my business because this person was successful by doing that herself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such an important point. Like we are consuming like a fire hose of information online all the time about how to build a business. And I was just telling someone earlier today, there's like 1.5 million opinions about what you quote unquote should be doing in order to be successful online. And they all work if you buy into them, or none of them work if you don't buy into them. So what's the actual variable here? It's your own mindset. And you might as well choose something that feels really good for you and just stick with it and see it through versus jumping around all the time, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel, for those younger entrepreneurs, they're, if they don't have a coach, especially, they're consuming so much content and they're just going from place to place. And it's like, oh, we got to come from this place of I'm already supported, right?
Mhm.
Everything's already all right. Right. So I love that. But, so how do you help people with this in your business?
Yeah. So I bring through, I mean, my training is multidisciplinary. So I do have strategic training, although we spend maybe like, I don't know, 5% of our time together on that because we really don't see it as being that big of a priority when you're entering one of my containers. But I have multidisciplinary training in terms of like trauma healing, mindset work, spiritual awakening, the energetics that exist in our energy body. And so I bring through a lot of healing and subconscious reprogramming. And a lot of stuff having to do with the somatic. So a lot of stuff having to do with the body and the energy system specifically. Because for me, and I think a lot of people actually are experiencing this, I could, do all the subconscious reprogramming and get my beliefs behind money being an infinite, limitless resource, but then my body would still be in a fear state. And so what really started to shift things for me in my own money story was when I started working with my body and realizing that there's actually beliefs and trauma stored in our body that can only be released and processed through the body itself. So we can't process a body-based belief in the mind.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And so I bring a lot of that work through because I find a lot of people with money, a lot of money mindset experts have the belief that our money story starts from a very young age. And that's definitely been my experience. And so you may have pre-verbal, meaning before you could speak, before you could use language, you may have pre-verbal beliefs stored in your body about what's possible for you with money, or like what money is like for people like you based on whatever you experienced in your early childhood development. So it's pretty powerful work.
Yeah. So that brings me back to a memory that I have with you when we did a timeline thing, and it was about money, right? Because I'm all about the energy and all about the money, right? So,
Yeah.
And when you say pre-verbal, there was one thing that it stuck in my mind because it was so shocking when we did this timeline thing that it was pre-birth, like right in utero for me, where I was like maybe 3-4 months in utero and feeling shame around my existence because I felt a monetary, pressure. Like I must have overheard my parents or felt energetically that because of my birth, that they were not going to have abundance. So it was almost like shame for even existing. So then the worthiness, like always having to do with that work,
Yeah, totally. And time technique specifically does work with the subconscious. So there is, those elements, but then there may also be like a body-based component where it's like, when I talk about like, do you feel like you deserve to receive $10,000 today? So we can even just like drop in for a second and play with it. If you're
right.
watching the YouTube or listening to the podcast, assuming you can close your eyes safely, just close your eyes for a second. Maybe take a deep breath. And just imagine that I hand you a stack of $10,000 in cash, or maybe it's a check, whatever you feel like you can imagine as being more real for you. So I just handed it over to you. You now have $10,000 in your hand. And so for some of us, we might get a hell yes in our body. And for others, we may get some like twinge of like a body-based sensation that comes up when you imagine receiving so much abundance so easily, right? And so that body-based twinge, for me, I remember a big breakthrough I had was around being deserving of easy money, right? Like I felt deserving of money if I worked really fucking hard. Can I curse, by the way?
Yep. Fuck yeah.
I felt deserving of money if I worked really fucking hard and burnt myself out. So that was one of my big patterns in business for a really long time. But one of my biggest breakthroughs with my money was I realized that I didn't feel deserving of money if it came to me easily. And that was a body-based sensation that came through my subconscious as I dropped into my body and felt into this idea of like, what if I received $100,000 this month, right? And that's a number I've been playing with lately. Haven't reached it yet in full transparency, but I'm playing with that number. And that was a big breakthrough I had when I started doing this inner work around these higher numbers. Was I didn't feel deserving of receiving something so easily, but that I never would have felt that in my mind. Like I never would have been able to figure that out in my mind. That was stored in like my solar plexus. That was stored in like my lower belly. And then, because of my training, I was able to process that through energetically. And now it's like, oh, I this morning we talked about before we hit record, I woke up to $17,000. Which is, fun and exciting. And like, of course we want that to happen in our business.
Yeah. I love that. I like that you brought that up because it's so true. And it repeated for me in my business too. Like, right before we push record too. And I was saying, I was treating my business like a corporate job. You have to be at your desk at this time. You got to do this. You're supposed to work Monday through Friday, blah, blah, blah. While I wasn't working 8 hours a day, it was still in the mindset. Right. But coming around now, like working with the bigger numbers, I think the last 2 years of my business, I did very well. Right. So seeing those bigger numbers come in and being like, oh, it's here. Or like I told you 2 days ago, I got a check for over $9,000. And I was like, instead of going, oh my God, where'd this come from? What if somebody's going to take it away from me? Right? Like trying to justify it. I was like, oh, cool. I deposited it on my mobile app, So
Yeah.
it's just more of a regular occurrence, like, right?
Yeah, like a relaxed receiving of it.
Yeah.
And like receiving and then trying to get rid of it or sabotage yourself as you receive it, which was another money pattern I particularly had. Like if I received a lot of money one month, then the next month it would be harder for me to receive the same amount or more, because I would subconsciously freak out and think had to do with the deserving pattern. I would freak out and think, oh my God, I didn't deserve that much that I received last month, so I have to suffer this month. That was a big pattern that would repeat in my business, where it was, I got a big hit of money and then I had to suffer. My subconscious wanted me to suffer because that's what felt safe for me.
Isn't that funny how we feel safe in some sort of pain mode and we actually get like addicted to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Because something that came through for me too on my money journey was, if you're just meeting me now on this podcast, you may not know, but I was in a codependent abusive relationship in college. And that was something that came through as I worked through a lot of my money trauma, because in that experience, if you've ever been in like a codependent, like gaslighting type relationship, it starts out amazing, right? Like it starts out like the best relationship you've ever experienced. And they actually have a term for this. It's called love bombing. So they like bomb you with love and affection. They make you feel like this princess or prince or whatever word you like. They're so romantic, so like over the top in love with you. And your system thinks, oh my God, this is my soulmate. This is the best relationship ever. But then very quickly it takes a turn for the worse. And so I actually had that pattern in my body and in my subconscious where I couldn't let myself receive so many good things all at once, because the fear was that it would all go away like overnight because of that abusive relationship experience. So I had to do a lot of processing around that to be able to keep, hold, and expand my money and not just receive and then suffer, receive and then suffer.
Yeah. And that reminds me of something I read where it says, how you do one thing in life is how you do everything in life. So that traumatic, relationship that you had, I'm sure that showed up not just with money, but, maybe with other things too.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things. And, it's kind of crazy, but you look at like the way our society is, and you look at the TV shows we watch, and you look at what's on the news, especially, which, I protect my energy from nowadays, but we're not raised to believe that things can be good, right? As a society as a whole, we're not taught or raised to believe that life can be good, that life can be abundant, that life can be easy. We're taught what? Life is hard. Life is unfair. The rich have so much and the poor have so little, or whatever your money story is, whatever you were taught growing up. And we believe it. And because we believe it, we co-create it unconsciously.
Yes.
And there's I don't like to think that you have to be perfect in order to create an abundant life, but there is something to be said for a lot of us just don't know how to relax into well-being. A lot of us just don't know what it feels like for all areas of our life to be thriving, for all areas of our life to be abundant, for all areas of our life to be joyful. We unconsciously have this addiction to conflict and suffering and struggle because somewhere deep, deep down, we were taught that that's all that's available to us.
Isn't that so, so true? It is. And I love how you said co-create, unconsciously, right? Are co-creating something that you don't want. You're kicking your own ass, right?
Yes. I kicked my own ass for so long.
Oh my gosh. So can you give the listeners an example of how shifting into this energetics has shifted something for you? Like an example of maybe your money or even just well-being.
Yeah. Well, I noticed a pattern in my money in like mid 2021 where I was making more when I invested more, and then it would kind of like stagnate. So I had this pattern of like making just enough, right? where if I invested, then I would make some more, and then it would kind of like drop back down. And it was a really interesting pattern to witness in my own money. And now I'm actually in a state of overflow where I'm making more than, what I'm investing into my business and what my personal expenses are. And that's such a big shift, because now you can build wealth and not just, attract and receive and then get rid of all your wealth. Right. And that was coming up for me because I had this fear. It's so weird to like voice this, because some of these unconscious fears like make no fucking sense when you actually like pull them out, but they're there, right? That's like the crazy thing. But I had this unconscious fear that if I made overflow, like if I made a lot more than what I was spending, then my dad, who's a money manager, would take over my finances and tell me how to spend, how to save, how to invest. And then like, I wouldn't be able to like be in control of my own money. So it actually felt safer to make just enough, because then I wouldn't have that wealth for him to potentially like take over the management of it, because he's a money manager. That's like what he did for his career. And when I discovered that pattern, I was like, oh my God, this is like a weird like teenager rebel thing. And then I'm like blocking an overflow of money because I'm afraid that my dad's going to tell me how to manage it. But it's like, at the end of the day, I'm an adult woman who's in control of her own finances. So whether or not he wants to give his advice, like I don't have to take his advice. Like I can have my own beliefs about money, and I can have my own patterns in money that feel really good for me, and, come from this abundance mindset versus like this restrict, save, save it away for a rainy day, which I do save and I do invest right now, but I also spend, right? Like I feel really good about upgrading my lifestyle, because that's why I started my business to begin with. But we can have these weird, like unconscious things that keeps us at a certain level of earning, receiving, keeping, and holding money, because somewhere deep down, there's this fear that someone's going to take it away, or that you'll get really sick, or something bad will happen, or that it'll be more responsibility than you can handle, right? Or that you'll fuck it up somehow. I had a lot of beliefs around, if I have that much money, I'm going to fuck it all up. And then I just, sat down and created a system that I follow now that feels really good for me. And now I don't have that fear anymore. Right. But there's so much trauma and so many layers to money work that you really can go on such a deep dive. And that's honestly why I do what I do now, because it took me so long to peel back all the layers that were affecting my money and get to this place of like easy receiving and growing of wealth. And now, because I've gone so deep, I'm just so passionate helping other people with it, because it really, it slows you down in business and it slows you down in life, and everyone deserves to be financially empowered.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. So you said something earlier about how money was infinite, expanding, or something like that. Can you explain to listeners how would you describe money? What would you describe money as? Or what is money?
Money is a currency that is constantly flowing. Money is an infinite, limitless resource. Money is something that is always available. And the only thing preventing you from receiving money are your own conscious or subconscious beliefs about what you can have, or what can happen to you, or what you're worthy of too. So when I think about like how I grow my wealth now, it's more about, how do I feel worthy of so much goodness? Not so much like, what do I have to do in order to get that? Right. And I think a lot of us have the mindset of like, what do I need to do to get that? But I do not have that mindset at all anymore. For me, it's, how can I raise my own internal sense of worthiness and have the supportive beliefs about money to back that up, so that I can receive more just from my energy? And that is what I experience. I receive from my energy.
I love that, because man, doing is like a toxic thing. It's horrible. I mean, as much as I was trying not to do in my business from doing a lot of inner work, after my husband passed away and I just completely stopped, that's when I saw like this weird incessant behavior in my brain. And like, oh, I should be posting on Instagram. Like what? Just stop freaking doing, And I think that
the doing is so addictive, right? Like it was hard to stop doing, wasn't it?
Yes. And now I'm like, I don't want to do anything, which is good. So I'm coming back well, I shouldn't say coming back because I'm not going that way, right? I'm moving forward in a whole different energy right now, slow and steady, and just feeling the way I had asked, because I just bought a car. I had asked Spirit, I'm like, okay. So I immediately, the day after, I was like, well, I need to justify my actions. Right. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I should launch a program. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I just don't know. What do I want to launch? Blah, blah, blah. And I pulled the card from this deck here, Work Your
Yeah,
Light, right? I think a lot of people have that. It was the no card. And I cracked up because it went on to say, you're not energetically in alignment. You know, like I asked the launching question, but everything it said, I was like, oh, you're right. They're like, you're just going to put effort out into the universe for nothing. I'm
Yes.
like, yeah, you're right. So here I am, just hanging out.
And the deeper like meaning of that is there was this part that came up in that moment, and it's not all of you, but a part of you didn't feel worthy of the car that you bought for that moment. So you were like, okay, let me prove that I'm worthy of it by doing this.
Doing something.
Work. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. See, and it doesn't ever stop, I don't think, right?
No, I mean, it gets easier for sure. Like now, like, so I mentioned I woke up to $17,000 this morning. Woohoo! We love that. And that like manifestation was literally within a couple hours. So I have been setting like stronger energetic standards about when I receive money in my business, how consistently and quickly I receive money in my business, and how much I receive money in my business, because we are moving to Miami and my living expenses are going to change a whole hell of a lot. And so I need more predictability. I need more consistency, and I need things to happen faster for me. And so I did my inner work to get my energy behind that over the past couple months. And then this morning, I was noticing my money wasn't responding, or yesterday morning, rather, I noticed my money wasn't responding yet for the month of March. And so what I did was I felt into it, and there was a childhood part that was still resisting it. I held myself in that. And then I sat in the energy of receiving the amount of money I wanted to receive. I actually got way more, which is always cool. But I sat in the energy of what I wanted to receive for, I don't know, maybe like 5 minutes yesterday. And then I kind of like went about my day. And then I was like, I guess it's time to check Instagram. And then in my Instagram DMs, I had someone who wanted to join my mastermind. And I was like, oh, cool, this is working. Yay. And so I had my normal little conversation with her. And I kind of like decided within myself, okay, I wanted this money to come, by the 18th. So I'm just going to assume that, she'll be ready to buy within 24 hours. I'll make sure she has everything sent to her before I go to bed tonight. And I'm going to expect to wake up to the money tomorrow. And today is tomorrow, and the money was there, right? So what's cool is it does get faster if you do the inner work, right? But a lot of us, we can't get to that place where we can do like near instant manifestation with money because of the deep layers of trauma we have around money. And so there is a lot of inner work that has led me up to this point, and I don't want to discount that. I don't want you to think that I've been able to do this my entire life, or that it was really easy for me to get to this place, because it did take me a long time to get here. But when you do the inner work, and when you commit to it, and when you see it through, even when it doesn't make any sense, then yes, you can get to this place where you can call in money within a couple hours, right? Like that money came in less than 24 hours from the moment I sat in the energy of what I wanted to the moment of receiving it in my Stripe account.
I love that. And it's about really recognizing that this is really real, you guys. It's science.
Mm-hmm.
It's science. So to get, out of the distractions and sit in your energy and do that work, right? Because so many people are like, oh, whatever, right? I just know their human brains are like, I don't have time to sit with that. But
how can you not
10 minutes?
And I get it, because again, it took like about a year for me to get to this level of consistency, right? Like it wasn't an overnight change for me, but now I kind of know like what to look for in clients, so it doesn't have to take that long for my clients. But so I get the unwillingness to commit to that, but what I've just really embodied and come to know for myself is if you just commit to it for, 6 months or however long it's going to take, then you're set for life financially, for life. And you can grow and you can expand and you can, become a millionaire or a multimillionaire, not because of how much you're doing and hustling and forcing yourself to work, but because you know how to motherfucking manifest money, right? Like,
Yeah.
is infinite and abundant. So why wouldn't you commit and spend the time to do the inner work to clear all of your money blocks and to be able to get to this space where you can make it consistent for yourself?
Yeah. And there could be a block too, right? Because the movement of your mind is really sneaky. So sometimes I think too that people, if they see that there's a possibility for change, their subconscious mind is like, no, don't look that way. And so the answer is like right there. It's sitting in energy, doing the inner work, right? But they're like, or it seems too easy, right? So they're like, how could that possibly work? It's too easy. It's too simple. It works.
Yeah. And I will say, here's a distinction. It is simple. Like it is simple. It's as simple as I said, clearing your money blocks, which, of course I do with my clients, clearing out all your limiting bullshit beliefs about money, expanding what's possible for you in your belief system about what you think can happen for you when it comes to money, and then sitting in the energy of what you want and expecting it to show up. Like that is literally the process of manifesting money. Those are all the steps you need to know. And like when you doubt yourself, you just come back, you recommit, you try again. But it's not easy. Let's be real. It's not easy because we're humans and we doubt ourselves. And we do have a lot of money trauma and wounds to work through in the beginning. So while it is simple, it's not easy, I don't think, until now. Now it feels easy.
Because I think too, now you have social proof, right? So that faith just grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're like, oh, this is the tool that I'm going to use today because it works.
Yes.
I love that. So why do you think that a lot of people have money struggles? I mean, that's a big question, but
I think I'm going to go like really meta. I think it's because we've been living in a wounded masculine patriarchal society, to be honest. We've been working in this like doing energy and this hustle mentality and this work hard and maybe one day you can be rich mentality for centuries, right? At least in America. And we're like very much missing the energy of the feminine, and the energy of the feminine is really abundant. It's really receptive, right? Like receiving money is a feminine energy, right? And then, the feminine is also deeply in her pleasure and she like lights up the world. And if you want to get really like energetic, like the feminine is Mother Earth. And like, I believe that money is like maybe an element of the earth is the way I think of it sometimes, where, you can call in this element into your energy, into your environment. And so if we don't cultivate our feminine energy, then we're not as open to receiving it. And, we've been taught not to cultivate our feminine energy, right? Like we've been taught not to be that bitch who, just expects people to cater to her every need. But that's really what you need to do if you want to be a match for abundant amounts of money, right? Like I had to cultivate so many beliefs that I was worthy of money showing up for me easily, money showing up for me just because I exist, money showing up for me just because I have a post or two on Instagram, not because I'm constantly posting or hustling for clients, but because there's stuff there and people can find it. I had to cultivate beliefs about, being worthy of massive amounts of money and more money than I need, right? Like that's a huge block for a lot of us. So many of us were taught only take what you need, only take what you need, only take what you need. And so when we want to play in this energy of building wealth and building overflow, we have to get right within ourselves that it's okay and that we're not a bad person or a selfish person or an evil rich person if we want more than what we need. But they're like the societal conditioning prevents us from being able to do that unless we do a lot of inner work.
Yeah, that showed up for me too with vacations, especially, I love to travel. Yeah. So years ago, like old Brandoline, right? I would be like, well, if I'm going to go on that, then that means I have to suffer for a really long time. Like, what the hell is that about?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going. Like, where am I going next? And that's the way I want my life to be. And I think once you just start doing it, like receiving rather,
Yeah.
and taking action on the things that you deserve and you want, that's when the universe is like, as you wish, let's give you some more, you know?
Uh, yeah, I call it like vixen energy because there's actually this part of myself that emerged during my healing journey, and she's like my divine feminine goddess, right? But I call her my vixen because she's like super sexy, and I first discovered her in the bedroom, of course. But she just has this energy about her, and I noticed it in the bedroom first. So how it feels for me is like, if money is my partner, right, in the bedroom, for example, how it feels for me is like, of course he wants me, right? Like, of course he motherfucking wants me. And like, I could take or leave him, but he motherfucking wants me, right? So it's like, it's like that vibe of being like so audacious and bold and so deserving and so worthy, and like knowing you're the shit. But like, none of us are taught that, right? Like, none of us are taught to know we're the shit. None of us are taught to be like, of course they want me, right? Like, unless you had amazing, really empowered parents.
Right. That would be,
Yeah.
you'd be like, of course. But I love that. So it's like creating that identity, right? And then embodying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course he motherfucking wants me. I love it.
Of course money wants me. And like, I take it deeper now. So I used to take it just from an attraction sense, like, of course money is hot for me. Of course money wants to come to me. But now I take it deeper and I'm like, of course money wants to stay with me long term. Of course, as soon as I spend money, money comes running back to me so quickly because money is so in love with me, right?
That's the best. Everybody listening or watching, you got to go do this exercise. Go find your inner vixen.
And then I also, one that's been really supportive for me is I've connected my money relationship to my husband relationship. I have a great husband, right? And so I've connected a lot of aspects of my relationship with him to my relationship with money. So my husband, I trust him implicitly. Like, I've never not trusted him in my entire relationship, 7+ years with him. And so I use that for my money relationship. I trust money implicitly.
Oh, I like that.
My husband comes home every day after work at a certain time, right? He's very dependable and reliable. So I see money that way, as an entity that is dependable, reliable, and comes to me every single day. And I do tend to experience that. My husband has been known to surprise me with flowers or date nights or, fun things like that, just because he loves me, not because I did anything, right? So this is breaking down that do to receive pattern. Not because I did anything, but just because he wants to worship me or celebrate me or love on me. And so I expect money to treat me that way too. And it's taken me a while to embody this, for sure. But when you are willing to do the work, then it just changes your whole reality with money. Like, what if money showed up in bigger amounts than you could possibly imagine every single month or every single day? I work on like a daily energetic minimum now, where like I tell myself every single day, I will receive this amount today. And I started with $100, right? Like, I started really, really low just so I could get my energy behind it. But now I'm working towards $10,000 per day.
Nice.
And I haven't achieved that yet, but we're working on it.
Well, you surpassed that today.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it speeds up, it gets faster, it gets easier when you get into the vibe of it, but you do have to be committed. And I have to say, like, if anyone's like at the very beginning of their money manifestation journey, what I would say is start with something that isn't money first, just to prove to yourself that you can in fact manifest. So the first thing I ever manifested was, well, actually, the first thing I ever intentionally manifested, because we're manifesting all the time, whether we know it or not. The first thing I ever intentionally manifested was a free coffee. And then I tried like a flight upgrade to first class. And I just started noticing like how easy and quickly I was able to manifest things that I was really detached from, right? Because like I was taking the flight anyway. The upgrade was just going to be for fun, right? Like it wasn't going to like make or break anything for me. So I had zero attachments to it. But a funny story about that was when I was playing with this back early on in my money manifestation journey, is it actually, what happened was I was on JetBlue, and then it like transferred me to American because American had purchased JetBlue. And then it transferred me to American, and it was like a different seat, and I had to like be rebooked at the gate. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening with my motherfucking flight? And then when I went to the gate, I was upgraded to business class. And I was like, how did that happen?
How cool is that? I love it. I love stories like that.
But it's like, that's how money works too. The only reason why we don't experience that with money is because we have limited beliefs about it, trauma about it, or we don't believe we're worthy of it working that way. So if you are at the beginning of your manifestation journey, try it with a flight upgrade, try it with an ice cream cone, right? One time I manifested free ice cream and I wasn't specific enough. So it ended up, what ended up happening was it was Uber Eats and they delivered it to the wrong address. And so I requested a refund. And then my husband was like, let me see the app. Let me see like the photo they took for like the drop off at the door. And so I showed him the photo and he's like, oh, I know exactly where that is. And he like went to the building. It's a couple blocks down, went to the building. The lobby door happened to be unlocked and he got our ice cream. And then Uber Eats already refunded us. So we were like, oh, free ice cream.
Okay. Yeah. The universe works in just really weird ways, but yeah. Yeah.
So, play with little things if you can't get your energy behind manifesting money, because the worst thing that can happen is you get some cool new free shit or some fun things that happen and you start to slowly build your faith. And then when you're willing to do the deeper work around some of your money wounds, then you can apply it to money too. And it gets to be that fast. It gets to be that crazy. It gets to be that easy. And you just get to keep building and building upon it.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait for people to like leave a comment or reach out to you to tell you that this worked. Tell them your Instagram so they could come follow you, or where do you want them to come reach out to you?
Yes. So my Instagram is at Kristen Kacinski. So it'll be probably in the description below the podcast or below this video. And then you can go to KristenKacinski.com for all of my offers and all the things that I have going on there. And then, I also have, if you're wanting to start working on your money stuff, I also have a free money mindset hypnosis that you can download just for entering your email address at mymoneyhypnosis.com. So if you wanted to just like hit the ground running and start reprogramming some of your beliefs, you just enter your email and I send it to you.
That would be perfect. I'm sure everybody's going to jump on that.
Yeah.
Yay. Oh, I just love talking to you and hearing all about all this transformation from strategy to energy and then blending it all together and then helping people. I love it.
I love it too. And it's fun to see the evolution that happens in business. And I truly believe like we end up in our calling, even if we don't start out there. It's like the universe guides us where we're supposed to go. And I feel like I'm living in that right now. So
you're so in alignment right now. It feels so good, right?
It does. It feels fun. It feels easy. It's like zero stress, zero pressure. And that's why I started my damn business, right? Was for that freedom and that no stress and no pressure and uncapped income. So
uncapped income. I love it. Thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you. Bye, guys.